This is the Five Lights Podcast. Yes, it is. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Five Lights Podcast. Yes, we are back after a little bit of a week off. I hope you all had a good Easter and consumed an abundance of chocolate eggs and remembered Jesus, of course. But now it is time to get back to racing as we look ahead to race 3 even of the 2015 season and China. We're going to break down all the news that has emerged since Malaysia and look at our fantasy picks for the weekend ahead. So without further ado, let's get going. And that was our theme tune. It's still going strong. We still like it here. Supplied by bensound.com, your one-stop site for your music needs if you have any multimedia projects like YouTube videos or Vimeo or podcasts or anything like that. So head on over to bensound.com to find out the right music for you. But if you're wondering if I'm doing this episode on my own, well, you'd be wrong. Listeners in the past will know that I have a compadre, a companion, and my brother along with me. I always have my backup, so allow me to introduce the Rob Smedley to my Felipe Massa, Ben. Ben, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to get back into some F1. We've had a bit of a week off. I feel a little bit bloated from all the chocolate I've eaten over Easter. Did you have a good Easter?
I did, yeah, really good. Not as much chocolate as you, I don't think, but I don't eat it anyway.
I've got 2 kids, so I have an excuse to hoard chocolate and then just steal it from them when they're not looking. So yeah, I've eaten so much chocolate, and it was Donna's birthday as well, so we had a chocolate cake. So man, I'm sick of the sight of chocolate, and we've still got about 10 eggs or something stupid left. So it's ridiculous. Anyway, enough about chocolate. Let's get into the news. We've got quite a bit of news. We didn't decide to do a podcast in between Malaysia and this race. We didn't think there was enough news, but it sort of built up as the week has rolled on. So, Ben, let's get into it, and let's start with the first piece of news. And Bernie Ecclestone is trying to do a bit of a Sepp Blatter here and set mankind back about 1,000 years with this whole women's F1 thing.
Yes, he's called for a women's F1, which basically will be on a race weekend, like, for example, if we take China this weekend, we'll have the normal men's Formula 1 that runs, the Friday practice, Saturday qualifying, Sunday race. But alongside that, there will be a women's Formula 1 championship, which will kind of be like a support series like GP2 is. And I think he's brought it in to bring the population in Formula 1 up in general, as well as for women. But it seems to have backfired on him quite a bit from the reactions of other people in the paddock, such as Susie Wolff and Jenson Button, for example.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 major questions I have, first and foremost, are, one, where is the money going to come from, and who are the teams going to be? So, is he suggesting that the current teams who, like Marussia, are already struggling to put 2 cars on the grid, are they going to provide the teams, or is it going to be a whole new set of teams that are going to provide cars? Where's it all going to come from? And as Jenson Button has said, and I'll let you say the quote in a minute, there's no need to do this, is there, really?
No, not really. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, who's going to broadcast it? Will it be Sky Sports? Will they take it on? Will it be BBC? Will it not be broadcast at all? Obviously, that would be even worse if they didn't broadcast it at all, but it's not a way to improve Formula 1, and Formula 1 has much bigger problems in female competition in the sport. I mean,
well, there are plenty of competent female Formula 1 drivers, aren't there?
There are plenty around, but I don't think there's going to be many, as Susie Wolff said, I don't think there's going to be that many that you can find to put in a championship. I mean, how many would they expect to put in a championship? And as you said, what teams they're going to be, what cars will they be, what kind of formula will it be? But Susie Wolff said that, without a word of a lie, she would take no pride and she would not be bothered about winning any of those races if it was to happen. And go on.
I agree with her there. It's a little bit condescending to suggest that we're going to have a female Formula 1 race. It doesn't make sense. I think Bernie thrives on a little bit of controversy, but I think even this is... So I think he's been colluding with Sepp Blatter in ways to offend women. And my other point would be, and I will let you get a word in here, Ben.
Don't worry.
But the other thing that sort of annoys me a little bit, and this isn't me trying to sound sexist because I'm not sexist, but why do we have to then create a whole new formula, especially for women? If they're good enough and they're beating the men in the other formula, then surely they should earn a seat. You know, we've had female Formula One drivers who've taken part in races in the past. I've done a little bit of research before the show started, and I didn't know there was one back in the 70s. And in the 74-76 season, there was an Italian driver called Leila Lombardi who drove for March, Ram, and Williams. She drove 12 races. I couldn't give you the stats of how well she did, but it's just proof that we did have female drivers in the past, and there's nothing stopping us having female drivers now.
Yeah, I think that driver you mentioned, Lombardi, I think she competed in quite a few races in that one season as well. I don't think it was just a one-off thing. But as Button came out and said this weekend, ahead of the Grand Prix, Formula One today, in the formula we have now, is mentally taxing and demanding, but not physically demanding. But well, I don't know what that was.
That was me. I'm very popular up here, and that's very unprofessional of me. I was listening to the On the Limit podcast earlier, and it happened in their podcast, and I thought, cut amateurs. it's just come back to bite me. But Ben, please continue.
It's not physically demanding as much as it was. It's a mental game. It's just, you know, what button do you press on the steering wheel? That's all it is really today. I mean, Button also said, and as most people will know, Button is a very good triathlete and athlete in general. He says Paula Radcliffe would beat him in the marathon hands down, and she's a female. But if you work at it, and if you're work specifically towards one thing, there's no reason why a woman can't be better than a man, and vice versa.
And
it's just that it's not in the grassroots of motorsport. It's not a lot of women are competing in it. It's not because it's not available to them. It's just maybe there's no desire.
And this is it. And I used to work in the Air Force, and there are female fighter pilots. You know, so that they can take. I mean, and that is a lot more physically demanding and mentally demanding, arguably, than being in a Formula One car. You know, if you're flying one of those things around the sky, you've got a lot more things to worry about if you get into a dogfight than you have if you're driving a car around. And there's a lot more things to go wrong in a fighter jet than there are in a Formula One car. So I think Bernie Ecclestone here is a little bit sort of naive. He's obviously ancient. I think they have to get him out of his sarcophagus every morning anyway. Now he's getting on his geriatric now, and I think it's coming to the time where he needs to pass the baton on to someone else. And he has done good for the sport. He's done some very good things for the sport, and he's entertaining if nothing else. But I think comments like that, think them, don't say them. It's engage brain before you open mouth, Bernie, because this won't work. And hopefully we can see some. I mean, we've had Danica Patrick in the IndyCar series, who has been competitive and won races. So, you know, this whole idea of having a female Formula One series is just nonsense, absolute nonsense.
It is. There's plenty of women coming through. I mean, we've just had Carmen Jorda for Lotus come through, and as you said, there's Danica Patrick in IndyCar. There's no reason why women can't race in Formula One. And Bernie Ecclestone, he loves his gimmicks for Formula One. He had the double points last year, that went down well. There's now this, and he's come up with plenty of things. You know, he's now on the siding with Red Bull. That, you know, it's a bad formula, and that we should get the V8s back with the 1,000 brake horsepower. I mean, he's even said this week that not single-handedly, but Toto Wolff of Mercedes is contributing to killing the sport.
But when Ferrari were winning all those races and Schumacher was winning all those championships, he was, you know, John Tott's best friend. I think Bernie has his favourites, doesn't he? As you say, Christian Horner's his favourite. He wasn't saying that when Christian and Red Bull were winning all those races. So I think he obviously has his favourites, and he should just sometimes just keep quiet. And as I say, I think it is time for him to sort of pass the baton on to someone else.
Age is showing.
Yeah, and I think obviously Christian Horner's been touted as his replacement, but why can't we get someone from outside the sport? Someone who's not been involved with any particular team, who won't have any favourites, who will just come in, who maybe come from another sport per se, and surround that person with Formula One advisors, but otherwise we're just going to end up with the same thing over and over again. Because you will get little clicks form in the paddock, I'm sure, like you do with any sport. So I think it's time for a sort of fresh reboot in the old leadership department.
That's a really good point, because we've just seen Ferrari win their race in the second race of the season, and their team principal is Maurizio Arrivabene. He has no technical knowledge whatsoever. He's coming from the sponsorship side. He's coming from a different aspect of not even it's not related to the sport. I mean, he was working with Ferrari with Philip Morris, which is Marlboro, the cigarette company, and then you also had Flavio Briatore, who was in fashion or something like that, wasn't it?
He was just a philanthropist, I think.
Yeah, so he came in, but Renault won 2 world championships under Flavio Briatore, and now Ferrari are doing really well and improved a lot over just a small amount of months under 2 people who aren't Formula One people. And for me, in my opinion, the biggest problem with Formula One at the moment is it's run by the teams. And you can't have a sport run by the teams.
No.
Because they'll just pull towards their own corner rather than think of the sport in general.
Yeah, I think they just need to find someone who has come from an outside background, who has an experience with say, another sport or in big business, and surround that person with Formula One advisors who are completely neutral. And run it that way. I think this whole promoting from within is a little bit dangerous, because they're going to just shape things the way. I mean, if Christian Horner becomes the head of Formula One and Red Bull are still in Formula One, how is he not going to be biased towards Red Bull? It's just going to be. He can say it all the time that he's not, but it's going to be natural. Whether he knows, whether it's consciously, he's doing it consciously or not, he is going to be biased towards Red Bull. That's just the way he's going to be geared.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. Anyway, I think we're stuck with Bernie for some time yet. I don't think we're going to see a women's Formula One anytime soon, and I hope that we do see a female Formula One driver in a Formula One car racing amongst the men at some point soon, because I think there are certainly some female drivers who fit the bill who would be good enough. But let's move on to the next piece of news, and it sort of coincides quite nicely as we were talking about Red Bull. Dietrich Mateschitz is, and in the notes that Ben sent me, it says, Dietrich Mateschitz is serious. What's he so serious about? Why so serious?
Well, you've just mentioned, and we've just discussed that Bernie Ecclestone is going to be with us for a while yet, but maybe he won't be. Because Red Bull, they said not long ago that they're going to quit if they're not successful, and Dietrich Mateschitz is serious because if Renault don't improve and they don't have a competitive car, it's Red Bull are leaving, which leaves Christian Horner without a job, which could mean new F1 Supremo in Christian Horner, who replaces Mr. Ecclestone, which is how it's been touted for a while.
Indeed.
So,
but the way I look into this, it's because there's another bit of news. We'll sort of piggyback the next bit of news onto this as well in a minute. If Red Bull leave, it wouldn't be the worst timing to do it, because, and hear me out here, Renault. So this is the next bit of news. So we'll go into this in more depth in a minute. But Renault are looking at potentially taking over Toro Rosso. So that's one of the Red Bull teams that would be swallowed up by another team already. Haas are coming in next year. So with Red Bull leaving and Toro Rosso being taken over by, we wouldn't actually have any less teams on the grid. All we would do is lose the Red Bull name. Yes, it would be sad to see a team who've got quite a bit of history now in F1 with so many world championships and they've been so good, and have a really good driver development program, and that would be my biggest worry, would be the driver development program and what would happen to that. But it wouldn't be the end of the world for Formula One, because there are already teams who are looking like they will fill the gaps left by Red Bull and Toro Rosso.
Yeah, I thought this kind of blown over, and I thought they just made a man out of a molehill, but apparently not. And maybe Mr. Mateschitz does like to throw his teddy out the pram, and who will take his ball elsewhere and play. But Renault must be furious because they keep getting blamed for everything that's going on. And I read a Q&A with Helmut Marko, which I think was on the Formula One website. And all his answers some way or another linked back to blaming Renault, and he wasn't really taking responsibility for it himself as Red Bull. I mean, it would be sad to see him go, as you say, but maybe it wouldn't, because we need people in the sport that are or aren't sore losers, and know when they're at fault.
Absolutely. And Renault have got good pedigree in the sport as well. They had all those championships when Alonso was driving for them back in the early 2000s. They know how to build a Formula One car. Yes, they're struggling with an engine this year, but so are Honda with McLaren, so they're not the only ones. But they will get better. They will get it right. And this whole thing with Toro Rosso, because I said we'll merge these two bits of news into one now, and that the news of either Renault completely taking over Toro Rosso, or is it Dietrich Mateschitz is making the decision, or Helmut Marko, that potentially they could paint the Toro Rosso the yellow colour?
Well, I suppose it'd be ultimately down to Cyril Abitbol at Renault and Mr. Mateschitz at Red Bull, because Dietrich Mateschitz owns both Red Bull and Toro Rosso. So if Renault are looking to have their own kind of works team, and we've seen that being successful elsewhere with Mercedes and Ferrari, then they're probably quite open to it. I know Franz Tost, I think we've covered before, would be elated to have Renault as their works supplier, but I can't see Mateschitz pulling Red Bull out and not Toro Rosso out, because they're the same, just slightly different colours, slightly different people.
And it's not this whole thing of, yes, you can paint the car yellow, and we'll give Renault a bit more of a platform for advertising and push them to the fore a bit more. It's not completely selfless by Dietrich Mateschitz, because Red Bull have just released it's a bit of advertising for them here, the summer edition drink, which comes in a handily in a yellow can. So it's not as if they, if they're going to paint the car yellow, it's not as if they can't still get the whole Toro Rosso Red Bull branding on it somewhere along the line. So it's not going to completely go amiss. For me personally, I prefer Toro Rosso to Red Bull anyway as a team. I quite like the fact that they're a young development team and they bring young drivers through. I think I'll be more sad to see Toro Rosso go than I will Red Bull go. And I think it will be sad to see a team like that who bring in young drivers and we look to for the next generation of talent to disappear. I'll be happy to see Renault come back, because Renault, they're prestigious within the sport. They've got a bit of history. They've done very well in the past. Excuse me, but this whole thing of throwing the toys at the pram, it reminds. I was watching a TV show in if you're listening abroad, it was on Channel 4 in the UK, and it was basically about watching toddlers at a playgroup. Sounds dodgy. Sounds weird. Hear me out. It wasn't. Basically, there was a little girl who was playing on a scooter, and she wouldn't let anybody else play with this scooter. So another boy came along and smacked her in the face, which was wrong. But in the end, it ended up the little girl let the boy who smacked her in the face. She had the choice of about 5 people. She chose the boy who smacked her in the face to play with the scooter, because she'd earned, the boy had earned respect. It sort of reminds me of the whole Mateschitz Abitbol thing, where Mateschitz has gone, no, you can't play with our toys, it's Toro Rosso Red Bull, I'm taking it away if you want to play with it. Cyril Abitbol's come in and slapped Dietrich Mateschitz in the face and said Adrian Newey's a liar and Red Bull are, doing all this. So Mateschitz has come back and gone, all right, well, maybe we'll paint the car yellow for you or something like that. Maybe we'll give you a bit more of a platform. It's just childish infighting. Basically, what needs to happen is Mateschitz either needs to put up or shut up, build a better car to be more competitive and support Renault to develop the car, or put your money where your mouth is, pull out, you won't be missed because we don't want to see people like you in the sport anyway. Hand over your development program to someone else so the young drivers can come through, or keep your development program and go into a lower formula, say GP2 or Formula 3 or whatever, so the drivers can come up through that way and end this whole childish nonsense of we can't win so we're going to go away. Rant over.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what painting the car yellow will do, apart from the car will be yellow. It'll be easy to see.
Well, it will make it easier to differentiate against the Red Bull, I suppose.
Yeah, but how's that going to make the car faster? unless they put less paint on and it's slightly lighter. I mean, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to be the next Mercedes or Ferrari and become as powerful and as popular as they were. But again, if this is their tactic to become more popular and therefore get more revenue and money to spend on their engine, that's not going to happen over the course of a few races or a season. That's going to take years. And Mercedes have become powerful and popular because they won races and they had, believe it or not, they had teamwork between themselves, between Mercedes as an engine and Mercedes as a chassis designer. And that's how Ferrari have worked. They need to be a works team to be successful. And they don't need to worry about their paint scheme. They need to worry about how they work together to form a car and fuse a car and chassis and engine together so they can win races like they used to.
And they didn't just come into F1 and instantly start winning. They had years of doing nothing, just floundering in the middle and sort of maybe picking up a few podiums here and there, and they were a sort of a middling team. Same with Mercedes. When Mercedes came back in with Schumacher and Rosberg, they didn't really do anything. And when Hamilton came there for the first year, they were quick, yes, but they weren't quick enough to challenge for a championship. Teams go through these cycles. Rules will change, the cars will change, the engines will change. So there will be some teams who adapt quickly and are able to pick it up and fly off with it. And there are some teams who will struggle. When was the last time Ferrari won a world championship? Or McLaren won a world championship. So all they got to do is look through the history books. You can't win every race. You can't win every world championship. That's what's great about Formula One. Because if Red Bull just won everything, nobody would watch, and you'd have no money. Red Bull, surprise, surprise, because there'd be no revenue from fans. So yes, you might have to suck it up, and it's going to be difficult for you not to win. But that should not deter you from the sport. That should only make you more determined. I'm sure if Usain Bolt didn't win the 100 metres, he wouldn't retire. He'd go, all right, I didn't win the 100 metres this time, but next time I'm going to get you. You know.
Mercedes more or less dominated 2014, yeah?
Yeah.
They were expected to dominate again this season. They won the first race fair and square, miles ahead of anyone. They just lost the second race. It was a bit of a shock as well that they lost to Ferrari. They said, "Hang on, this is our wake-up call. We've made a boo-boo. We haven't really worked hard enough. We've been a bit complacent. We didn't know how hard to work because we weren't getting pushed. Now we need to step it up, go through where we're going wrong, and improve that." For me, if that was Red Bull and Christian Horner in Mercedes shoes, they would have come out and probably said, and this may be miles off the mark from me, but they may say, oh, Pirelli need to change their tyre compound because we couldn't get our tyres to work in the hot temperatures for long enough, or they need to put some kind of ice or cooling on the circuit so it's not as hot so we can win. For me, that's some kind of childish argument that would come out of it if it was Red Bull losing to Ferrari last week or 2 weeks ago rather than Mercedes. As we've said countless times, they're just childish.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and if they leave, then yes, it will be sad to see that go. The only thing I worry about, as I said before, is the driver development program. Hopefully that will continue, and they'll because I believe they've got hands in Formula lower down anyway, haven't they? They've got invested interest in Formula, so hopefully that will continue through that, and then we'll see them feed into Formula One in some way, shape, or form, and maybe they'll just continue through sponsorship, but they'll just pull the team. If that's the case, then yes, it'll be sad to see them go, but it won't be at the same time. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Maybe they'll go into the women's Formula.
Yeah, maybe they will, and maybe Rosberg will do something with his sanitary towel.
Yes, but apparently Renault have stepped up their engine settings and made an aggressive step forward for this week. Their settings, I think, for Melbourne and Malaysia were very conservative on the grounds of reliability and safety. So they've stepped up all their development for this weekend. They've turned their engines up, and I think they're aiming to catch Williams. As I understand.
It'll be good to see. It's also it's actually interesting to see the whole Toro Rosso Red Bull battle like we saw in Malaysia. I want to see that again. It's teams who are obviously very close, and they had some really good, tasty racing. So let's hope we see that again in China. So we'll move on to the next piece of news. Ben has sent me this in a slightly different order, so I'm just going to throw them at him now because I think they're all equally as important. Lewis Hamilton's contract is next, Ben. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, he said at Malaysia it was going to be signed at the Malaysian Grand Prix weekend. Wasn't signed. Now he's saying it'll be signed when it's signed. So it was expected to be £27 million with bonuses, and that would be a year. That would be the salary per year. He's saying that the contract is 99.6% complete. It's just
That's very specific.
very how he worked that out is well, credit to him. But
So just 0.4% left of the contract to finalise.
And that 0.4% is just little things that neither side probably want to relinquish and give up. So whether that's certain other bonuses or maybe the how long the contract is, I don't know. But it'll be done when it's done apparently, and he's not too worried about it.
That's the biggest thing that's not come out yet is the length of the contract. Obviously, we've seen how much he's set to make because he's what was the base amount? Is it 25 million? The base amount he's set to make.
I think his basic is, from what I've seen, is expected to be around 20.9 million a year.
Right. Okay. So he's set to make at least 20.9 million a year. But how many years? How many? Because that was the whole thing. Because we laid out our numbers, didn't we? I reckon he was going to make around for the entire contract. He was going to make around 100 million. And you said around was it 40 million? You said basic.
I think I said 60 because I
60.
said 20 per year over a 3-year deal.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how long it's for. I can't see it being a 5-year contract. Just the way Formula One changes all the time. I think you might have hit the nail on the head, Benji. I think you might be looking at a 3-year contract. But that's the piece I'm interested to see is how long it is, not necessarily how much money he's going to make, because we all knew he was going to make an astronomical amount of money. Just how long you're going to keep the current world champion around and arguably the best driver on the grid. How long do you want to keep him for?
Well, maybe he's the one who's holding it back. I mean, I want to say that I believe everything that I read Lewis Hamilton said, but maybe he's holding off until he knows or can gauge what's going to happen next year. Maybe he might move to Ferrari, as was rumoured, because Kimi Raikkonen might not want to be there anymore. Who knows? Maybe he's holding out just to see if it's worth staying at Mercedes for 3 years. But my guess would be 3-year deal for Mercedes. But I've been wrong before on contracts. Who knows what happens with contracts? That we've seen so many people move unexpectedly as well that anything could happen.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, and so we'll see what happens there. But it'll be interesting to see just how long he stays around for, and it will be interesting to see if he is going to stay short term and keep an eye on the other teams and possibly where else he could go. But have we got any sort of time scale on when he's potentially? I mean, there's no point in listening to what they say because they said it was going to be signed the other side of Australia, then it was going to be Malaysia. So when can we expect it to be signed, Ben? Ben, tell me when he's going to sign it.
Well, sorry to disappoint you, but I think it's just as and when.
Right,
he's come out and said eventually. If we're gonna make a prediction,
let's give an exclusive here. So this is a Five Lights podcast exclusive. Ben now has the actual date and time when the contract will be signed. Ben,
I reckon it's going to be announced. I don't know when it will be signed, but it will be announced the Thursday of the Spanish Grand Prix.
The Thursday of the Spanish Grand Prix. There, you've heard it here, folks. The Thursday of the Spanish Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton will announce the astronomical amount of money he's set to make over so many years. So there we go. Let's move on to the next bit of news, and it's Mercedes related again, and they're bringing some updates forward for the Chinese Grand Prix. Sort of a reaction to what happened in Malaysia?
Yeah, they realise they've got to up their game and move forward to keep their advantage ahead of, or what the advantage they did have ahead of everyone else. So they're bringing developments to China and quite a lot of aero developments. So expect to see through Friday practice sessions all the new aero bits, front wings, probably any other kind of small details on the rear wings, the rear of the car, and just to see him doing probably a bit more running as well in Friday. Obviously, they were hindered last, or at least Lewis Hamilton was hindered in Malaysia through the reliability problems and not being able to run, which might have cost him a bit of time in terms of setup. But yeah, it's just we'll see how it goes and whether they're going to make any substantial difference. But the thing is, a lot of people I think will be bringing developments to China, and that'll be the last set of updates we'll see until the start of the European season in Catalonia, which is in about 3 or 4 weeks' time after, or 4 or 5 weeks, sorry, after Bahrain.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they bring. It'll be interesting to see how it affects the car and performance-wise. We'll get into some of the statistics with China because it actually the history of the track and who's won before and who's the previous winners makes this race even more tantalising and more interesting. So, but we won't really see any difference until probably Saturday morning, I'd say, because they don't want to give away their chips too early, do they? They want to sort of show their hand too early. So I'd imagine we won't see any sort of significant difference in the speed of the Mercedes and what they've brought here until Saturday morning in sort of the final practice session.
No, I think you're right. I think it'll be late FP3 and then into qualifying is when we might see a difference. And I think expect Mercedes to probably work on their race strategy more in the practice sessions, so doing long, heavy fuel loads and runs.
Indeed, so we look forward to that one. The next piece of news, Ben, some penalty points for some drivers, and a certain someone's racking them up quite high already.
Yeah, someone's got the wrong end of the stick, I think, with this.
There's no trophy at the end of this one. You don't have to get the most points here.
I suppose you've got to be the best at something. So after the Malaysian Grand Prix, there was 3 incidents which will involve Nico Hülkenberg, Sergio Perez, and Pastor Maldonado. Woohoo. And Pastor Maldonado has been given 3 penalty points for speeding under the safety car in Malaysia. That was the heftiest amount of points awarded in Malaysia, and his total now though is at 8.
Is it 13?
I think it's 12.
Is it 12?
I think
it's
the same
12.
as the road car license. If you hit 12, you get a 1 race ban.
Maybe he'll have to drive around the circuit, because you see these across the UK where if you get 12 points you're banned. And you usually get 3 points if you're caught speeding. And there's a lot of people who drive around the UK with bumper stickers or boot stickers that say, "I have 9 points, so I'm sticking to the speed limit. Please overtake me. Please forgive my driving." So maybe Pastor Maldonado will have to drive around with the sticker on the back saying, "Sorry guys, I've got to take it steady. I've got 8 points. I can't take another fine here, otherwise I'm done. So just give me a wide berth, okay?"
Maybe we need to introduce speed humps or speed cameras, and maybe Bernie Eccleston can introduce that as one of his fancy gimmicks.
I don't see that one taking off.
No, but the cars probably would if there were speed bumps.
But how many points have Sergio and Nico got then?
Nico Hülkenberg, he was given 2 penalty points in Malaysia, and that means he stands at 2. So that's his first 2 penalty points. I think, if not ever, then within a year. Because I think they get wiped after a year, I think.
Yeah, is it a year from when you get your first set of points, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's when they stay on for. And it's not like the end of 2015. It is a calendar year, isn't it?
Yes, I think the end of the season, I think.
No, I think it's a calendar year. Is it? It's the whole year, so it'll be next April they'll come off.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah, you're right, yeah, thinking about it. Obviously. And his teammate, Perez, he's been given 2 penalty points as well for his incident with Grosjean, and that takes his points to 3. So somewhere along the line he got 1 point. I'm not sure what that was for. No. Seems a bit pointless just giving the 1 point, but yeah, he's at 3.
I looked at these, and I feel a little bit sorry for Pastor Maldonado here. I know obviously speeding under the safety car is a big thing this year after obviously what happened to Jules Bianchi last year and the whole bringing in the sort of electronic safety car thing they brought in now, and that's a big issue in F1 they're trying to tackle. But the incident with Perez and Grosjean, for me, warranted 3 points. So
Yes.
equal, it was a dangerous. There was no way on God's green earth that Perez should have been there in that car. He should not have been put in that situation. And if, as I say, as we mentioned at the time when we broke down the Malaysian Grand Prix, if he'd have been any further alongside Grosjean, that was an airplane accident and not a car accident. So I think Perez has got away quite lightly on this one.
Yeah, I'm not even sure who the race steward was for Malaysia, so I don't know what effect that would have, if any, if the person's normally quite forgiving or quite lenient or aggressive. But yeah, I think you're right. At least 3 points for that kind of incident. The Hulkenberg was probably about 2 because it was something or nothing. It was going to happen, but it wasn't particularly dangerous. And the Maldonado one, definitely again at least 3, not because it's Maldonado, but because it's speeding under the safety car, which obviously is a big concern, as we saw in Suzuka last year.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, there might be a sort of a standard set of points they have to give for so the incident at Perez, they can only give 2 points. They can't sort of flex their muscles a little bit and have a little bit of sort of creative flex on that. Maybe they can only give 2 points. But if it was sort of a free fall and you could give what you thought, I would say that was certainly worth 3. But he's got 3 on his license anyway because he picked up some random 1 point from somewhere. So I suppose in the end of it, he is equal on that one. So we'll move on to the next piece of news. And a new driver coming in for Toro Rosso, as we spoke about them earlier. It's Pierre Gasly? Another pronunciation for the Five Lights podcast.
He's a Frenchman. And he's set to debut for Toro Rosso in May's in-season test, which happens the week after the Spanish Grand Prix. He's 19 years of age, and he was a 2013 Formula Renault 2.0 Euro champion. What a mouthful!
Wow!
Yeah.
Wow!
It's not like just being I'm the Formula One world champion. I'm the 2013 Formula Renault 2.0 Euro champion.
Can you imagine the plaque on the trophy? It'd be huge. It'd just wrap round the whole thing. It'd be massive.
Yeah, it's not the easiest conversation piece having to start with that and trying to remember that.
And can you imagine when they presented it to him? And now presenting the Formula Renault 2.0 2013 world champion, Pierre Gasly.
How many times he had to say it?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's now going to compete in GP2 this year, and I think that kicks off in Bahrain.
Yeah.
Next weekend. He was actually racing, I think it was Formula 3 or GP3, and he lost out to Carlos Sainz for the race seat even to Toro Rosso. So I think it was between him, Verstappen and Sainz, and Gasly just lost out. I was going to say probably because of his age, but we've got a 17-year-old Max Verstappen there. So
it's probably to do with money, let's face it.
Probably, yeah. Or maybe it is just talent. I mean, we've seen how good Verstappen is and how good Sainz is. So we'll have to see in GB2 how good Pierre Gasly is.
Yeah, and good luck to him. And it's good to see that young drivers can still come through. It goes back to that whole thing of the Toro Rosso and the Red Bull drivers development program. Let's hope that continues if they do decide to pull out, because it has produced some fantastic talent, and it would be a shame to see that go in the future. So, last piece of news then, and the roof has come off at Silverstone. The roof is off.
That's not a metaphor either, or anything. It has literally been ripped off.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember 2 or 3 weeks ago now, the UK was suffering from high winds, and that's blown off the Silverstone wing. I've seen a picture. It's not that great of a picture. I don't think it's the whole roof. I think it's part of the roof, and I'm not even sure if it's the slopey part of the actual wing, or it's the other end of the pit complex. But regardless, the repairs will be quite quick, and they're doing it immediately. And they've said that no events will be affected. I think there's the World Endurance Championships is going to be hosted there this weekend as well. So, and that's a 6-hour event, and that's still going ahead. So that's good to see, at least, especially for me as well, as I'm going to Silverstone this year, so I don't want to be stopped because of some wind.
But you did want to rub it in there that because I'm not going. So thanks for that one. Cheers. But
No worries, I'm here all week.
don't you worry, Ben. When you're at Silverstone Grand Prix, I'll be putting you to work, buddy boy. You'll be doing. You won't be just there to enjoy it. You'll be put to work, my friend. I have some plans for you that you don't know about yet. Anyway, so the roof has come off at Silverstone. It's going to be a quick repair. So that's great. And that is the end of the news. The news is wrapped up, Ben, unless you've got any more sneaky bits like you tried to sneak in on me last time. Got nothing else?
No, nothing else.
Good. So let's get into the Chinese Grand Prix, round 3 of the 2015 Formula 1 season. It's tasty. It's very, very tasty. I do enjoy the Chinese Grand Prix. I think it's a great circuit. So Ben has supplied me with some stats, and I've done some research of my own as well, which I'll get into in a moment. But let's go through Ben's stats. I do like enjoying this. I do like enjoying this? No. I do like doing this. I enjoy it. It's probably what I'm supposed to say. So, Friday the 10th of April to Sunday the 12th of April is when the race takes place. It's at the Shanghai International Circuit. The length is 4.51 kilometres, or 3.387 miles. Now, Ben, I questioned you last time on your mileage, and I think I was just very tired.
Yes, I double-checked this time.
Yes, yeah, I apologise for calling you out, but your facts, as always, were completely correct, so I apologise. It's 56 laps, which is 189.558 miles in total. The tyre compounds are medium, which is the white band, and soft, which is the yellow band. It has 16 turns, 2 DRS zones, which are at the pit straight, which is quite a long straight, and between turns 13 and 14, which is equally a very long straight. Qualifying will be at 8 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, so that's 8 a.m. in the UK. Sorry, I can't do the maths in my head. If you're listening abroad, I couldn't possibly give you all the other time zones, but if you just go off Greenwich Mean Time, it's 8 a.m. The race is at 7 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Another early one, Ben. Get your F1 selfies in with those tired faces. The weather is looking like it's going to be a dry and warm weekend, but there sometimes is a little chance of a shower. I think the main issue, though, in China is the smog.
Yes.
So fog lights are required in China. The likelihood of a safety car is 33%. So
I think Maldonado's going to need more than fog lights.
Yeah.
You need floodlights.
And a fog horn, I think, for Maldonado. So 33... Excuse me.
Wasn't that funny? But...
No. Excuse me, 33% chance of a safety car, so a third of a chance. So there you go. 6 out of 11 races have been won from pole, so roughly half. A cool ambient temperature in Shanghai. Low grip makes tyre degradation high. This is where he does his Rob Smedley bit. Low temperatures and grip also make it difficult to heat up the tyres, which could be interesting, because last time in Malaysia they were too hot, so this time they're going to be too cold. So it's going to be interesting to see how the cars cope with that. Due to being built on marshland, the circuit is quite bumpy. So that's another thing to watch out for, which will be interesting to see now the cars are so low to the ground. So you expect to see more sparks fly in China this time round. Heavy front tyre wear, especially the front left, because of all those left-hand turns. And it's difficult to get the right setup due to a mix of slow, medium and high-speed corners, plus the long straight, the longest in F1. It is a very long back straight there, and there's 2 pit stop strategy is expected if it is dry. Another little bit of news, a little drop at the end here. Jolyon Palmer will be testing for Lotus in FP1, Ben. So a good set of stats there. Are you looking forward to this one?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's another early morning, but it's the last one until the end of the year in Suzuka. It provides a good race more often than not. What bodes well for me especially is it's Lewis Hamilton's, or one of Lewis Hamilton's most successful circuits. He's a 3-time winner there, which is also a record as well. Alonso's won twice, and a bunch of other drivers have only won once. So he's quite good round here, as is Mercedes, as we mentioned earlier. And it was where Rosberg got his maiden pole and victory in 2012. So
indeed,
yeah, it's a mix of everything in Shanghai, as you said from my notes. It's got slow, medium, and high-speed corners, so setup is hard to get right. So cars will be compromising one thing for another. So they might compromise high speed for the long straight, for maybe a bit more tardiness in the corners, and that's what Friday will be all about. So any drivers that miss any running in Friday practice will greatly suffer on in qualifying and during the race.
Stole my thunder a bit there, Ben,
Sorry.
because I did some research, as I said, into the history of this race, and it does make for tasty reading. As you said, which is the thunder stealing part, Lewis Hamilton has won 3 of the 11 races that have been held in China. Do you know which constructor has won the most?
Ferrari, no?
Yes,
No.
Ferrari,
Yeah, it
yes.
is. Wow.
So, with 4 races, and the last 3 races have been Mercedes with Rosberg, Alonso with Ferrari, and Hamilton with Mercedes. So, it's after what happened in Malaysia, that makes this a really sort of interesting and tantalising race, because it's Ferrari and Mercedes who have come out on top here in the past 3 races anyway, and overall over the past 11 races. So we can expect to see them going at it again, can't we?
Yeah, and I think what's going to be more interesting is with Ferrari winning last race, it's going to be a bit more nervy and closer this race between Mercedes and Ferrari. People are saying that Mercedes are going to, go back to the dominant self because of the track temperatures are going to be a lot lower than Malaysia. But Ferrari are still as quick as Mercedes in the straight line, and obviously we've got the long straight. So I don't expect Mercedes to drive off into the distance, or at least Lewis Hamilton to drive off into the distance. And I'll get more into that as we do our Badger Grand Prix predictions of who I think is going to win and come second, third, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of more little facts here, which puts the ball back in Hamilton's court. He holds a number of records at the Shanghai circuit, including the only driver to set a pole victory and fastest lap treble. So he is pretty nifty around here. He is one of his favourite circuits, statistically anyway. And another little statistic which I quite like, it doesn't mean anything at all, but back in 2004 in the inaugural race at China, Barrichello beat Jenson Button by just 1.035 seconds, the closest winning margin in Formula One history. So it is a track with a little bit of close racing history. So after Malaysian Grand Prix, I'm really looking forward to this, because we had so much close racing through that one, and that one can be a bit processional if it's dry, and it proved not to be. So it's going to be a good race, Ben. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, and we'll get an even better idea as where cars are. I mean, we got a rough indication in Melbourne, we got a good indication in Malaysia, and then China is where we're going to have, probably the best indication for the rest of the season of where teams will be. Williams have said that they're going to step it up and hope to catch both Ferrari and Mercedes, and they struggled with the rear tyres in Malaysia. And it is a really good circuit, and there's going to be some good racing. There's the chance for overtaking, and qualifying is quite important as well because of that first corner, which is a very long right-hander / left-hander. Because if you look at it on a track guide, it kind of looks like a snail, the back of a snail.
Yeah.
So drivers will struggle to get that spot on, because if they make even the smallest mistake going into that corner, they go wide, and they've just blown the lap at the first corner. So we could see quite an interesting qualifying session and line up for the race.
Indeed we could. Favourites, I know your memory's not very good, but favourite past China races. For me, I can't remember what year it was, but I just remember this vividly, and I say my memory's not too brilliant either, but there was a year where Raikkonen was holding up so many cars, and it was in the Lotus, and his tyres had gone off completely, and I think it was with about 3 laps to go, his tyres finally completely fell off the cliff, and he skidded everywhere, and I think he was third at the time, but then I think he ended up finishing 11th or something in the end. But that was another really close race, and everyone was just watching this snake as it went down the back straight, and it was where he came to that final hairpin where his tyres finally said, nah, enough's enough, and he let loads of cars pass. I can't remember what year that was, but that was great to watch. Have you got any sort of past memories from China?
Well, we spoke about Hamilton's dominance at the circuit, and I think out of 10 races, he's only finished out of the top 10. Oh no, he's only not finished on the podium twice. So he's done that, finished on the podium or won it 8 times, and for me, it must have been 2011, or I think it was 2011 where Hamilton won the race, but he overtook Sebastian Vettel on that corner. I think it's like between turn 4 and 5. And he took him on the outside.
Yeah.
Really good overtake. So that was a good memory. And I also remember, quite funny but also not funny at the same time, during a practice session, I think it was the Toro Rosso of Jaime Alguersuari.
Ah, yeah.
And he was going down the back straight, and so you're going about 210 miles an hour down there, and he went to put his brakes on, bless him, and he saw his front 2 tyres keep on going.
It was almost like he just went, and jettison tyres now. The tyres just going flying up. It's a great bit of footage, that bit of footage.
Very dangerous, but quite comical at the same time. And
I love the way he kept turning the wheel. Jaime, the tyres have come off, fella. Doesn't matter how much input you put into that steering wheel, that's just going to go straight on, my friend. But yeah, that's a great bit of footage. But he must have been terrified. That must have been terrifying to watch that.
Yes,
right.
Not just skids on the road.
No, absolutely. So, predictions then, Benj.
Yes.
Let's get into it. Let's use the Badger GP app. So, if you want to get involved with Fantasy F1, there's a number of websites. The best one by far, though, and we are slightly biased, is the Badger GP app. So you can go to www.badgergp.com. You can sign up there. There's also a number of pro things you can sign up for, which you have to pay for, but you get some great perks like being on the Wall of Champions, and you get entered into the fantasy competitions where you can win prizes and so on and so forth. And they offer some great fantasy games for Formula 1, where you pick 3 drivers, you pick 3 teams, and then you make 6 predictions on the race, including who's going to win, who's going to get the fastest lap, who's going to finish first, second and third, and the number of safety cars in the race. You get £75 million to spend on your team. As I say, you have to pick 3 drivers.
Real money.
Not real money, no. Fictional money. And then you have to pick 3 drivers and 3 teams. For this weekend, it's the last weekend where you get unlimited changes. Once the qualifying session starts on Saturday, the lock has come down. You won't be able to make any changes to your team this weekend, and then you'll only get a further 8 changes to make throughout the season. So think about it and spend that money wisely, picking the right teams. Me and Benjamin are in 2 leagues. We have the 5 Lights League, which has currently got 11 people in, and feel free to join that. So it's the 5 Lights League, and the passcode is 459062, and we are also in the Flat Out Fever Podcast League. And we're doing quite well in that league, Ben. We're only, you're second and I'm third, behind Flat Out Fever's Dan. So it's good to have another Dan at the top, but it's the wrong Dan in my opinion. So he's at the top with 300 points. Ben is just behind him with 282, and I am on 236. I've made a few changes. I've really overhauled my team, and I'm umming and ahhing whether to tell you about my team, because obviously there's unlimited changes at the minute, and I'm a bit worried that if I tell you, you might follow suit. And to be honest, I've got to catch you. You
were a bit sneaky last race weekend, because it was my impression that we did these predictions and we did our teams on the Thursday night. That was settled. That was it until lights went out, and then the following race. Then you messaged me Saturday morning during qualifying. Oh yeah, I made a few changes. You cheeky beggar.
This was never laid down. There was no tablet of stone with the rules laid out that said that this was going to happen. But, okay, if that's the way you want to play it. But the thing is, we're in this flat-out fever league now. And Ben, we have to win this.
We do have to win.
We have to win this.
We are the best podcast.
We are the best podcast.
We have to prove it.
We have to show this. I mean, we're beating the other 2 guys. We're beating Mike and Jay, so that's I'm pretty happy about that. But I think Jay wins the competition for the best name for a Formula 1 team, which is Bernie's Wrinkly Bum, which is a great name for a Formula 1 team. And if Red Bull are looking to sell, or Toro Rosso are looking to sell, then perhaps that Jay would like to buy them up and create the Bernie's Wrinkly Bum team. But we're beating both of those at the minute. And obviously you were, but now that the 5 Lights team have also joined the Flat Out Fever team have joined our league, he's also top of ours. So we need to do this not only for our league, but we need to win their league, because, as you said, we are the best podcast. So we need to do some changes. Right, so let's go through the predictions first and foremost. because I just say, if I tell you my team, I'm worried that you're going to go there and make those changes and copy me, because I'm feeling pretty good about this change now. So let's start with a winner bench. Who have you got to win the Chinese Grand Prix?
Lewis Hamilton.
I also, now in the previous races, I've tried to sort of fend you off and go, I'm going to go opposite here and try and score some points on you. But in the case of this race, with Lewis Hamilton being so strong here in the past, I have got to go with Lewis Hamilton. Is that your thinking as well?
That, and I think Mercedes will be Mercedes again, especially if Lewis Hamilton gets a good run in on Friday. I don't see Vettel or Rosberg beating him. I think he's just going to take the victory. I mean, I saw a stat saying no one's ever won back-to-back victories, but I don't buy that kind of statistic. I think that's a load of rubbish. So yeah, Hamilton to win.
And those statistics are there to be broken, aren't they? Really,
Exactly.
I mean, they're not sort of set in stone. Those sort of things. It's not like he's a record of any kind.
It's just something someone's come up with.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about you don't think Hamilton looks like he's going to be beaten. He does look extremely confident at the minute in the way he carries himself, the way he's sort of posting on Twitter and Facebook. He does look laid back. He looks chilled out. And Rosberg looks the complete opposite, really. And there's a lot of things coming out in the press that he's under pressure. He feels like he's got to chase him down. But during the race in Malaysia, some of his radio contact where he was asking his engineer for some tips on driving and what was happening in the race. And Hamilton, yes, he sounded flustered too, but Rosberg just sounds like a defeated man. I mean, this was mentioned on another podcast that I listened to, On the Limit podcast, which is, if you like your Formula One with a West Country accent, that's the one to listen to. But yeah, I had to agree with what they said on there. He does sound like a defeated man. Yeah,
I mean, the comment that's quite surprising for everyone is that he said, Lewis Hamilton drove like a world champion. He is a world champion, and he deserved to win. I mean, that's okay. It's true, but you've got to kind of come out and say, yeah, he did well, but I'm going to come out and beat him. And he does seem quite defeated in himself. But I think, as I mentioned on the last podcast, he hasn't got the natural talent that other drivers on the grid like Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso have. So he's having to do a lot more homework, and homework doesn't always get you there. But if you're in school and you're listening, or you're in college or university, do your homework. Get your places.
Do your homework. Driver. Yeah, maybe more talent than homework. But yeah, I mean, so with that in mind, and you said that you think Mercedes are going to return to being Mercedes, who have you picked for second place then?
Bit contradictive, but Sebastian Vettel.
Okay, so you're going to take Vettel for second place.
I just think Vettel and Ferrari are in a better place than Rosberg is.
And unfortunately, I agree, and I have also.
You've just changed it, have you?
No. I've not even made these selections yet. I'm making them as I go along.
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. but I do agree with you. I think Vettel's in a much better place, and I think he's a much stronger driver at the minute than what Rosberg is, which is worrying for Mercedes, because you're going to want someone in there who's strong-minded and a strong-willed and has got a good head on his shoulders. It's like when Hamilton was at Mercedes, at McLaren, arguably he was a better driver than Jenson Button, but Jenson Button didn't let that affect him. He went out every week and tried to beat him because he's a competitor, whereas Rosberg at the minute doesn't come across that way. He comes across as someone who's turned up, and if he can get a win, then that's great, but he's happy just to finish in the top 3 at the minute.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about Lewis Hamilton and at McLaren, I think overall, throughout their tenure together, Jenson Button actually outscored Lewis Hamilton over their course together.
Yeah.
So, but again, Jenson Button's got a bit of that natural talent about him, and he's really mature, he's really experienced, and he's really clever, and he's extremely fit. And Rosberg, I'm not sure, maybe last season just destroyed him. He tried to get to Lewis Hamilton by making little comments, and it just backfired on him completely. I think he underestimated how much of a superstar Hamilton was and how much people would get behind him. And I don't think he expected that, and that's probably got him down a bit. Who knows?
That could well be the case. So, with that in mind, who have you got in third place finishing the race?
Nico
And I
Rosberg.
guarantee you've got Rosberg in third.
Yes.
I've got Kimi Räikkönen.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I yeah I think I sort of thought you would pick Rosberg, and Rosberg is the logical choice. But Raikkonen has not had much luck, and I think he's done well in China in the past. So I think he could sneak into third place. And listen out for my bold prediction after this. Just listen out. But yeah, I've gone for Raikkonen in third.
Wow. No, that's. I wouldn't say I'm surprised if that would have happened, or that's probably a pretty good prediction. He hasn't had luck in the first two races, but it'd be good to see that change. And I'd like to see him up there, to be fair, and doing well and seeing how good he is compared to Vettel. That would be really good to see.
Yeah, so that's our top three. Pole position bench. I think we all know where we're both going with this one.
Lewis Hamilton,
Indeed, agreed. Fastest lap.
Kimi Räikkönen.
Wow. Okay, so I've gone Lewis Hamilton for fastest lap, but you've gone Kimi Räikkönen. So,
Yep.
wow. Okay, so explain yourself.
Well, I chose Hamilton for fastest lap in Malaysia, which was incorrect. I think Lewis will be able to get a decent enough lead that he doesn't have to push towards the end, which is when the fastest laps come about. And I think it's kind of covering my bases a bit that if Rosberg doesn't finish third or Vettel doesn't finish second, then Raikkonen will be on the podium and he'll be pushing like hell to try and, catch third, second, or even catch Lewis in first. So that's kind of my thinking behind putting Kimi on fastest lap.
So I've chosen. I like your thinking because it was a similar sort of thinking that I nearly picked Williams last time for a fast, because they always tend to come at the end because obviously the cars are lighter and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. But my thinking is that Hamilton may want to send a message to Ferrari and say, we're still the big boys here, we're still the fastest car on the circuit, watch yourselves. And he has got the record in the past of putting down fastest laps, so that was my thinking there. Not crazy thinking, but I
No.
think he will take it.
But I don't think he's in that. I don't think he cares about them in that respect of the fastest lap in a race. I mean, we saw with Sebastian Vettel at Red Bull that he wanted the fastest lap. For some reason, he had some weird obsession with getting the fastest lap in a race, which proved nothing, and which unnerved Red Bull staff. So maybe it will be Sebastian Vettel. I won't be at all surprised. But
No.
I wouldn't expect it to be Lewis.
Okay, and the final one, safety cars. I've picked one safety car this time.
10.
It's going to be a wet race.
No,
And
I've chosen 0.
0. Okay,
Yeah.
well I went 0 last time. I was wrong, so I've gone 1 this time. 33%. It's actually quite high, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's 1 in 3 chance of there being a safety car. So, which leads on quite nicely actually to my bold prediction. But do you want to do bold predictions first, or do you want to talk through the teams? Do you want to talk through the teams?
Well,
that
we're
selected?
doing predictions, so let's stick with you. Let's go with your bold predictions.
Okay, so my bold prediction is that there's going to be one safety car, and the reason there's going to be one safety car is Rosberg is going to qualify poorly. I think he's going to make a mistake somewhere, and he's going to qualify, I say poorly, but 4th, 5th.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's not going to be on first or second. Then being in that position, he's going to get himself in trouble and have an accident and not finish the race, and he will prompt a safety car. I don't know who he's going to collide with, but
Pastor
he will
Maldonado.
collide more than likely, Pastor Maldonado. But my bold prediction is Rosberg will qualify poorly. Yes, he's done well here in the past, but he will qualify poorly, and he will have an accident which will prompt a safety car, and he will not finish the race. That is my bold prediction. Write it down. Check it out.
I haven't thought of any, so I'm going to think of some on the spot. And I'm going to say there's some drama and spice between Sebastian Vettel and Raikkonen.
Right.
Everyone knows that they get on well and they're friends off track. But I think racing together, there'll be some heat, there'll be some tension, and we could see some squabbling and a new story in F1 to follow.
I don't see Raikkonen as the squabbling type though. I mean, I know that he's had not fights, but he's had a go at his engineers in the past, and he has had a go at Lotus when he wasn't getting paid. So I reckon I don't discount that it won't happen. I think discount, that's not the right word. I don't say it won't happen. Dismiss it won't happen. So anyway, I just
it won't happen.
I'm not dismissing it, but I think it would be an interesting fight. I think Vettel could get spicy if he's not potentially in the lead and Raikkonen's holding him up. But I don't see Raikkonen holding him up because he was doing so well in Malaysia beforehand, and you got to look at, yes, Vettel won the race, but Raikkonen came from the back of the grid after having a puncture and still finished fourth and was catching Rosberg at the end.
Yeah, I could see it being maybe not from Raikkonen's point of view, but more so Vettel that initiates it. I think it's how he's programmed. I don't really see it coming to fruition and happening. I mean, if I was to make another bold prediction, would be that both Marussias start the race and qualify within the 107% rule.
So, wow. We will have both Marussias in China, is Benjamin's bold prediction. So make a note of
and
those. And
both will finish. If I'm going to go bold, I'll go extra bold. They'll finish as well.
Both will finish. Okay. And, McLaren? Are both McLarens going to finish this time round?
No.
Straight out, no.
Button will finish, no. Alonso will not.
Okay. Will Bottas's back play him up? Do you think he's completely recovered from that?
It's quite a bumpy circuit, but I think they've got it under control and they won't have any problems for a while. So no.
It's a good point you raised there. That it is a bumpy circuit, so it could flare up some sort of issues. But yeah, it's a good point you make. But my bold prediction is that Rosberg will qualify 4th, 5th. He'll have a bad qualifying session, and then he will have an accident early on in the race, prompting a safety car, and he will not finish. So that's my bold prediction. Ben, are you having 2, or are you just sticking with the 1?
Well, I think my first one wasn't that good, and you'd been a good boy and thought of some before we went live, so
yeah.
I'll stick with my 2.
So you're going to have your 2. Okay, so Benjamin's are that Vettel and Raikkonen will have a lover's tiff halfway through the race, and there will be some spice added to the Ferrari partnership, and that both Marussias will start and both Marussias will finish. Okay, so that's some good poll predictions. Do you want to go through these teams now, Ben, of the £75 million that you've spent?
Yes. Going back to these predictions, I will write them down somewhere, and then we will review them on Sunday's podcast.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Right. I'm really nervous about doing this. Okay, so I have overhauled my team. Okay, I've had a clear out and I have changed it up dramatically. So I have only spent £74 million, so I have £1 million floating around as free money. My 3 drivers are Felipe Massa, Max Verstappen, and Felipe Nasser. They're my 3 drivers.
Okay.
My 3 teams are Mercedes, Ferrari, and Williams. Okay. So.
And you're nervous because you think I'll copy?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, you haven't got any worries.
Oh, good. Well, maybe someone else listening might, but that's my.
Like your thinking.
I've gone with the whole put all your eggs with the teams because they've got 2 cars. So let's see how that works out. And I've got 1 strong driver in Felipe Massa, and I've got 2 arguably still strong drivers who could sort of finish on the periphery of points. I mean, Verstappen got some good points last time. I think, what was it, 5th place he got in the end, or 6th? Not to be sniffed at all. No. But if I can get the top 6 places with my teams, I'll be happy with that. So Ben, please don't copy.
It's not too bad thinking about it.
Not too bad.
You've got the same kind of. You've done the same as what I've done, or I should say, we've both got the same strategy in that we've put, in the spirit of Easter, we put all our eggs in the team basket, and that's. I think I've gone the same route with you with the teams in that I've got Mercedes and I've got Ferrari. I haven't got Williams.
Okay.
I've got Toro Rosso.
Okay, still a good team though, still a
So,
strong
yeah,
team.
two I think reliable because I still wanted to keep some money for my drivers and get some
Hmm.
decent drivers in. So yeah, I think Toro Rosso, two really good drivers. They've got decent reliability, and I think they're kind of going to be more consistent and do better than most teams other than Mercedes and Ferrari. And then moving on to the drivers, I'm going to have Lewis Hamilton as my driver because he's going to win the World Championship, and no one's going to score more points than Lewis Hamilton in that respect. So there we go.
Okay,
Um,
confident.
two drivers to back him up are, I remember this off the top of my head, Max Verstappen
Hmm.
and Felipe Nasser.
Wow. Okay, so you've got Max Verstappen, Felipe Nasser, and Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah,
So we've got two of the same drivers and one different driver. So basically, we've got one different driver and
and
one
one
different
different team.
car. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Let me ask you a question though.
yeah.
As I have £1 million spare, Verstappen or Sainz Jr.
I could go with Verstappen and Saints, but I think that would be suicidal because you've just put. I've got Toro Rosso and then they're both drivers, so if neither of them finish, that's just lost a ton of points.
Yeah.
And then I'm in an iron between Verstappen and Saints. And I had a look at the standings, which didn't help, which is very annoying because they're both on the same amount of points.
Yeah.
Um,
But I was thinking more from my perspective.
oh, right, okay.
Because, let's say, I've got £1 million floating around. I could afford to get Sainz to take me up to the 75 million cap room. However, who is the better driver, do you think? Verstappen or Sainz?
Saints has more experience, but is more prone to making mistakes from what I think we've seen.
Yeah.
Verstappen has less experience, but seems to have more natural and raw talent.
Yeah.
And I think
mean,
I think he is the better of the two, Verstappen.
Yeah. And he did beat him in Malaysia.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's an interesting one. It's a really, really interesting one. But that's our teams. That's what we've got. So I look forward to that one, actually. I was a bit nervous to tell you, but the fact that you said that's all right, that's okay, I was expecting you to go, wow! It didn't really happen, though, and I'm a little bit deflated about that. However, okay, fine. That's fine.
You'll change it before Saturday, so don't worry.
I won't change it. It's locked down now. I've been on and on whether to take Malaysia out, no, take Massa out, and maybe.
I
Put
think
another,
that was my only and is
Yeah.
Massa.
I can't afford Bottas, and the only driver I can afford underneath is like Grosjean and Maldonado, and I know I'm not putting
Go
either of them in.
Maldonado.
No, I'm not putting either of those in.
He'll get you good penalty points.
No. So that's it. That's what we've got. So bench summary, China. Hit me with your summary of the Chinese Grand Prix. What we can look forward to. Oh yes, and the so you got the timings. Have you got the timings for practice there?
No, not with me. I can look them up quickly.
Sorry, you give me a sort of summary of the Chinese Grand Prix. What to look out for, what to look for, and I will look for the times for the Grand Prix.
Look out for how quick the Mercedes and the Ferraris are compared to each other in the Friday practice sessions. I think they'll both do long fuel runs ready for the race. Look out for qualifying and how drivers go around the first corner and the mistakes that they might make. That could prove quite tricky, and that could prove your theory, Daniel, that Rosberg has a poor qualifying session. Qualifies poorly, goes wrong at the first corner, and then during the race, again the first corner is going to be quite tricky, a lot of contact possibly, and then I think we're going to be in for another race like Malaysia. Maybe not as good because I think the safety car helped, but another good race with lots of overtaking, especially down that back straight. But it's going to be really close and really looking forward to it.
Me too. I can't wait. So the TV times you got to look out for is if you're in the UK, it's only on Sky Sports F1. You'll only get the highlights on BBC. So Sky Sports F1, you're looking at the race. Obviously, as we said, is at 8 a.m. on the Sunday. The qualifying is at 7 a.m. on the Saturday, and then you've got FP1 at 3 a.m. tomorrow, which is Friday. FP2 7 a.m. Friday, and FP3 4 a.m. on Saturday. So that's all your TV times. If you go to badgergp.com, they're all on there. So it's another good reason to go over to Badger GP. Great fantasy, great articles, and they provide you with all the TV times. What's not to like? So head over there. So that's it. We've broken down the Chinese Grand Prix. We're both looking forward to it. Our next episode will be the Sunday after the race. Not the Sunday after the race, that makes it sound like it's going to be a week after. So it's going to be after the race on Sunday, which probably makes more sense. So we will break down the Grand Prix straight after the race, so it'll be fresh in our minds. We won't be doing a video again. We have a plan to use Meerkat, not an actual animal, but the app Meerkat, which is a live streaming app, so we can live stream some of the podcasts. And Ben, that is what I'm going to be tasking you with in Silverstone, to do some live streaming and get involved a little bit. So you better be up for the task, buddy.
Definitely, yeah. As long as it involves me not missing out on the Formula 1.
Oh, no, we would not have you missing out on the Formula 1 whatsoever. We've got some plans in the pipe work for some cool stuff to do with Meerkat, but we'll keep you updated as we go along. In the meantime, once you've listened to this podcast and you can't get any more fix of your Formula 1 anywhere else, there's some other great podcasts to listen to. You've obviously got the On The Limit podcast. You can follow them on Twitter at OnTheLimit77. Links to their websites are on our website, which is fivelightspodcast.com. You have also the Flat Out Fever podcast from our friends over the pond, who are challenging us in the Badger GP leagues, and we have to beat them. And their Twitter is at Flat Out Fever. Again, links to their page is on our website. You can go on there, you can find our YouTube page, our Instagram page, you can find our Twitter feed, which is at Five Lights Pod, and the Facebook feed as well. So your hub for everything is fivelightspodcast.com. There's also some great blog posts going up there at the moment. I did one of why we love F1 last week, just over the Easter, to fill the Easter gap. Ben's got a couple of biting points he wants to get on there later on. He's also put some of our predictions on there as well, so keep an eye on the website for those sort of things. We're also looking out for some sponsors, not financially, but we want to sort of help grow the podcast. So if you're a business owner, or you have a business or another podcast or something, a magazine, anything like that you want to promote, get in contact with us. Email us, email at fivelightspodcast.com. Send us your business idea, and if we like it and if we think it's viable and we want to support it, we will advertise it on the podcast, obviously in return for you advertising our podcast, because we want this to grow and to send it out to as many people as possible. Head over to our social media, as I've mentioned, on the website. Ben, oh yes, one more plug, sorry, before I go. Simply the Bex, she is a up-and-coming Formula 1 writer. She wants to get into journalism, sports journalism. She has started her own blog at simplythebex.wordpress.com, so head on over there. She's done a pretty comprehensive breakdown of the Malaysian Grand Prix, which you can all read, so head on over there and read her stuff. And if anybody out there is a budding journalist or podcaster or anything like that, blogger, and you want to get your stuff mentioned anywhere, please feel free to contact us via social media or email us or via the website, however you want to. Get in contact and we will do our best to help you out. Ben, anything else to break down before we head away?
Get more sleep again.
Yes.
Ready for early mornings this weekend.
Yes, get more sleep again. F1 selfies, Ben, you're going to get your F1 selfie up this time. You're a bit camera shy.
I am a bit camera shy, especially at that time in the morning. You posted ours last week. I keep saying last week. Last race, didn't you?
I did.
All of us in our
indeed.
family. I will get mine up this
Wee.
weekend. I will get my F1 selfie online this week. Yeah, and hopefully you're not too discouraged from the photograph.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be glorious, absolutely glorious. But yeah, stay tuned to the blog at fivelightspodcast.com. Ben will be writing up some great stuff again to go on there. Hit us up if you want to get some advertising on here. We're happy to help anybody we can, as long as we like the product or what you're selling or whatever else. That is it. The Chinese Grand Prix will start tomorrow. Get up nice and early if you want to for FP1, or record it, or whatever you want to do, and enjoy the Grand Prix. I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic one. The 5 lights have gone out. See you later, guys.
Bye.